1 silver locket. That was all it took to turn a rainy Tuesday shift into a bloodbath. In the criminal underworld of New York, secrets stay buried 6 feet under, but some ghosts refuse to rest. When a trembling waitress spilled coffee on the wrong suit, she didn't just ruin a $3,000 jacket, she dropped a bomb that would shatter the city's most powerful crime family. The face inside her locket belonged to a dead man, a man the Mafia boss had buried himself. Love betrayal and a bullet for the past. This is the story of how a memory became a death sentence. The neon sign of Sal's 24-hour diner flickered with a dying buzz, casting an intermittent red glow over the wet pavement of 42nd Street. Inside, the air smelled of stale, grease-burnt coffee and the weary resignation of people who had nowhere else to be at 3 a.m. Isla Corin wiped the counter for the 50th time that night. Her wrist ached. The cheap polyester uniform clung to her skin, sticky from the humidity of the kitchen. But she kept moving. She had to. Rent was due in 3 days, and her landlord, Mr. Henderson, had stopped accepting excuses about tough times 2 months ago. "Hey, honey, top me off," a trucker grunted from booth 4. "Coming right up?" Isla said, her voice raspy. She grabbed the pot, her other hand instinctively going to her neck. Her fingers brushed the cool, tarnished silver of the oval locket resting against her collarbone. It was a nervous tick, a grounding mechanism. As long as she felt the metal, she wasn't entirely alone. The bell above the door chimed, not with a friendly tinkle, but with the heavy thud of the door being shoved open with purpose. The diner went silent. It was a specific kind of silence, the kind that happens when a predator walks into a grazing field. 3 men entered. They wore suits that cost more than the diner's annual revenue. The rain rolled off their wool coats like it was afraid to touch them. In the center stood Dante Rossi. New York knew the name even if they whispered it. The capo of the Rossi crime family. They called him the Butcher of Brooklyn, though he hadn't set foot in Brooklyn in years. He operated from the penthouse of the Obsidia Tower in Manhattan. He was tall, with shoulders that filled the doorway, and a face carved from granite, handsome, but in the way a tombstone is handsome. Cold, final. Isla froze. She kept her head down, praying they would sit in the back order black coffee and leave. "Booth by the window," Dante commanded. His voice was a low rumble, vibrating through the linoleum floor. His 2 guards, Enzo and Rico, flanked him as he moved. They sat. The air in the diner grew heavy, pressurized. "Waitress!" Rico barked. Isla flinched. She grabbed her notepad and walked over, forcing her legs to stop trembling. What can I get you, gentlemen?" Dante didn't look up. He was checking his watch, a Patek Philippe, that glinted under the harsh fluorescent lights. He seemed bored or perhaps just exhausted. "Espresso, double, and water." "Black coffee," Enzo said, eyeing the door. "Same," Rico grunted. "Right away." Isla retreated to the safety of the counter. Her hands shook as she poured the espresso. "Just serve the drinks. Get the tip. Go home." She placed the cups on a tray. As she walked back to the table, the locket swung slightly from her neck. She approached Dante's side. At that exact moment, the trucker in booth 4 stood up, stumbling drunk, and clipped Isla's shoulder. "Whoops, watch it, sweetie." Isla lost her balance. The tray tipped. Time seemed to slow down. The tiny ceramic cup of scalding espresso tumbled through the air. It landed squarely on Dante Rossi's lap. The sound of shattering china was deafening. "Fuck!" Enzo jumped up, hand going inside his jacket for a gun. Dante hissed, standing abruptly, the dark stain spreading across his impeccable charcoal trousers. His eyes, dark as oil, snapped to Isla. I am so sorry. Isla gasped, grabbing a rag from her apron. Panic seized her throat. She reached out to dab the stain, a foolish, desperate instinct. I didn't mean to. Don't touch me, Dante said. His voice was lethal calm. He grabbed her wrist to stop her frantic wiping. His grip was like iron. He pulled her hand away, disgust etched on his features. You clumsy little... Isla pulled back, terrified. The sudden jerk snapped the weak clasp of her necklace. Clink. The silver locket fell from her neck. It hit the table, bounced once, and spun to a stop right in front of Dante. The impact jarred it open. Dante glared at her, about to order Enzo to throw her out, or worse. Then his eyes dropped to the table. The locket lay open. Inside, behind a tiny, cracked pane of glass, was a black and white photo. It was a candid shot of a man, laughing, his head thrown back, a small scar, visible on his chin. The air left Dante's lungs. The rage vanished, replaced by something far more terrifying recognition. He froze. His hand hovered over the locket. Where? Dante whispered the word, barely audible. He looked up, locking eyes with Isla. Where did you get this? Isla was shaking so hard, her teeth chattered. Please, sir, it's mine. I just want it back. Dante snatched the locket up. He stared at the photo. His thumb brushed the face in the picture. That's Luca, Rico muttered, leaning in his face, paling. Boss, that's Luca. I know who it is, Dante roared, slamming his fist on the table. The cutlery rattled. He turned the full weight of his gaze onto Isla. This is my brother. My brother who died 3 years ago in a car fire. My brother whose body was so burned we had to identify him by his dental records. Dante took a step toward her, backing her against the booth. Why do you have a picture of a dead Rossi around your neck? Isla's back hit the glass window. I didn't know his last name. I knew him as Luke. He gave it to me. He gave it to you. Dante's eyes narrowed. Luca didn't give things to anyone. He took. He gave it to me, Isla cried, tears spilling over. Please just give it back. It's all I have left of him. Dante studied her face. He looked for the lie. He looked for the deception of a rival family, a plant, a spy. But all he saw was raw, terrified grief. He closed his fist around the locket. Enzo, Dante said, not breaking eye contact with Isla. Bring the car around. Boss, we're leaving. Dante grabbed Isla's arm. And she's coming with us. No. No, please, Isla screamed, trying to twist away. Help someone, help me! The trucker looked up, then saw the gun bulge under Enzo's jacket, and promptly looked back down at his eggs. No one moved. In this city, you didn't interrupt a Rossi. You have 2 choices, Dante whispered in her ear, his breath hot against her cold skin. You walk out with me, and you tell me everything about Luke. Or you stay here, and my men burn this diner to the ground with everyone inside it. Isla went limp. She looked at the terrified cook peeking through the kitchen porthole. She looked at the old man in the corner. I'll come, she whispered. Dante buttoned his stained jacket, his face a mask of stone. Good choice. The ride to the penthouse was silent. Isla sat in the back of the black Lincoln Navigator, sandwiched between Dante and the door. The child lock was on. She checked. Twice. Dante didn't look at her. He held the locket in his hand, rubbing his thumb over the silver casing, staring out at the blurred lights of the Brooklyn Bridge. The rain hammered the roof, sounding like gravel thrown against a coffin. When they arrived at the Obsidia Tower, they took a private elevator that bypassed the lobby. It opened directly into a sprawling penthouse that screamed lonely wealth. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, but the heavy velvet curtains were drawn. The furniture was black leather and chrome. No photos, no personal touches. "Sit," Dante commanded, pointing to a single armchair in the center of the sunken living room. Isla sat. She hugged her arms around herself, shivering. Her uniform was damp from the rain during the walk to the car. Dante poured himself a drink, an amber liquid from a crystal decanter. He didn't offer her one. He downed it in one swallow, the burn settling his nerves before turning to face her. "Start talking," he said. "And if I smell a lie, I hand you to Enzo. Enzo enjoys his work a little too much." Enzo, standing by the elevator, cracked his knuckles. It was a cliché, but an effective one. Isla took a shaky breath. "I met him 3 years ago, at the diner. He came in every Tuesday around 2 a.m., just like you." Dante's eye twitched. Luca hated diners. He liked 5-star restaurants and models who didn't speak English. He didn't look like a rich man when I saw him. Isla countered, a spark of defiance breaking through her fear. He wore a beat-up leather jacket. He looked tired. Sad. Luca wasn't sad. He was reckless. Dante paced the room. He was the heir. He had everything. "He told me he wanted to run away," Isla said softly. Dante stopped pacing. The silence in the room stretched taut as a violin string. "What did you say?" "He said he felt trapped. He said the family business was suffocating him. He called it a cage made of gold and bones." Dante's face hardened. That sounded like Luca. The Luca that Dante had tried to protect the younger brother he had shielded from the worst of their father's brutality. "He told you about the business?" Dante asked, his hand drifting toward the gun in his shoulder holster. If Luca had spilled family secrets, this girl was a loose end. "No," Isla said quickly. "He never said what the business was, just that he wanted out. We talked. For months. Just talked. He was the only person who listened to me. And then," Isla looked down at her hands, "then he asked me to marry him." Enzo scoffed from the corner. "The Prince of New York marrying a waitress boss, she's lying. This is a hustle." "I'm not lying." Isla reached into her apron pocket, but Rico had his gun drawn before she could blink. "Slowly," Dante warned. Isla pulled out a folded, yellowed piece of paper. It was a receipt from a chapel in Atlantic City. Dante snatched it. He read the date. October 14th, 2023. His blood ran cold. That was 3 days before the crash. 3 days before Luca died. "We eloped," Isla whispered. "He said we had to do it fast. He said he had a plan to get us out of the country. He told me to wait for him at the motel in Jersey. He was going back to the city to get something from his brother's safe." Dante felt the room spin. To get something from his brother's safe. "He never came back," Isla said, tears streaming down her face again. "I waited 3 days. Then I saw the news. The car crash on the I-95. They said he was drunk driving." "He wasn't drunk," Dante said, his voice hollow. "The toxicology report was clean. It was a brake failure. Or so we were told." Dante looked at the receipt, then at the locket, then at the girl. If she was telling the truth, she was his sister-in-law. She was family. But if she was lying... "Why now?" Dante asked sharply. "It's been 3 years. Why are you still waitressing in a dump? If you were his wife, why didn't you come to us for money?" "I didn't know who us was," Isla shouted. "He never told me his last name was Rossi. He signed the certificate as Luca Dean. I thought he was just a guy in trouble with loan sharks. I was scared. When he died, I thought the people he was running from killed him. I thought they would come for me next. So I hid." Dante studied her. The fear was genuine. The poverty was genuine. A gold digger would have shown up at the funeral with a lawyer. Isla had hidden in a diner for 3 years, wearing a locket worth $5. Dante walked over to her. He loomed over the chair. He reached out, and Isla flinched, closing her eyes. He didn't hit her. He gently placed the locket back into her hand. "Enzo," Dante said quietly. "Yeah, boss. Want me to take her to the basement?" "No," Dante said. He turned to the window, looking out at the city that had taken his brother. "Set up the guest room, the one with the secure lock." "Boss." Enzo looked confused. "She's not a prisoner, Enzo," Dante said, though his tone suggested she wasn't exactly free either. "She's a witness." "Witness to what?" Isla asked, clutching the locket. Dante turned back to her. His eyes were burning with a cold, terrifying resolve. "Luca didn't die in an accident, Isla. My mechanics checked that car. The brake lines were cut. Someone murdered my brother." He pointed a finger at her. "And he told you he was coming to take something from my safe. That means whatever got him killed, he might have told you what it was, or where it is." "I don't know anything." "You better hope that's not true," Dante said grimly. "Because if I found you because of that locket, the people who killed Luca can find you too, and they won't be as polite as I am." "Polite?" Isla looked at the bruise forming on her wrist where he had grabbed her. "Yes, polite." Dante unbuttoned his cuffs. "Get some sleep, Mrs. Dean. Tomorrow we go hunting." As Isla was escorted away by a confused Rico, Dante sat alone in the dim light. He opened the drawer of the side table and pulled out a file. The police report of Luca's death. He flipped to the back. There was a list of personal effects found in the burnt wreckage. Wallet, watch, wedding ring. Dante paused. Wedding ring. He had assumed it was just Luca being Luca carrying jewelry for a mistress. But if Isla was telling the truth... Dante picked up his phone. He dialed a number that hadn't been used in years. A private investigator named Saul Berenson. "Saul," Dante said when the line clicked. "Wake up. I need you to find a marriage license in Atlantic City. October 14th, 2023. Luca Dean." And Saul. "Yeah, Dante. I need you to find out who was working the security detail at my penthouse on that specific night. I want names." Dante hung up. He looked at the spot where Isla had sat. If she was Luca's wife, she was under his protection. Omerta. The code demanded it. But as Dante looked at the locket still sitting on the table where she'd forgotten it, in her haste he noticed something. The locket had a small groove on the side. Not a scratch. A seam. He picked it up. He grabbed a letter opener and wedged the tip into the seam. With a sharp crack, the false back of the locket popped open. A tiny folded piece of onion skin paper fell out. Dante unfolded it. It wasn't a love note. It was a string of numbers, coordinates, and a single name written in Luca's messy handwriting. Beatrice. Dante stared at the name. His blood turned to ice. Beatrice wasn't a woman. Beatrice was the name of the ship his father used to smuggle the family's gold shipments in the 90s. A ship that was supposed to have been scrapped 10 years ago. "What did you get yourself into, little brother?" Dante whispered. Upstairs, Isla locked the door to the guest room, sliding down against the wood, sobbing into her hands. She didn't know that by dropping that locket, she hadn't just revealed a face. She had started a war. The morning sun did not break through the grey blanket of smog hanging over Manhattan. It merely lightened the shade of the gloom. Inside the penthouse, the atmosphere was brittle. Isla had slept in her uniform, waking up with a stiff neck and a heart that hammered against her ribs the moment she remembered where she was. She found Dante in the kitchen. He wasn't eating. He was staring at a map spread out on the granite island, the tiny onion skin paper from the locket pinned to the corner by a heavy crystal tumbler. "Coffee," he said, not asking, but stating. He pushed a mug toward her. "Drink. We leave in 10 minutes. Isla took the mug. It was scalding hot. "Where are we going? To find out what my brother died for?" Dante replied, finally looking up. His eyes were red-rimmed. He hadn't slept. "The name on the note, Beatrice. It's a ship. An old freighter my father used to run out of the Navy Yard in Brooklyn. It was supposed to be decommissioned and scrapped a decade ago. But according to these coordinates," he tapped the paper, "it's still sitting in a dry dock in Red Hook." Isla felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. "And you think?" "What, that Luca hid something there? Luca was the sentimental type," Dante said, his voice laced with a bitterness that masked deep pain. "He used to play on that ship when we were kids. It was his fortress. If he was going to hide something he didn't want the family to find, he'd put it in the one place the family forgot existed." He grabbed a black trench coat. "Enzo stays here. Rico drives. You're with me." "Why do I have to come?" Isla protested, setting the mug down. "I don't know anything about ships or smuggling. I just want to go home." Dante stopped at the door, turning to look at her. For a moment, his mask slipped, revealing a flicker of reluctant protectiveness. "You don't have a home anymore, Isla. Not until I know who killed Luca. If they know you exist, and if they were watching the diner, you're a target. You're safest within arm's reach of me." The drive to Red Hook was tense. The city transitioned from the glass and steel arrogance of Manhattan to the rusted industrial skeleton of the waterfront. Rico drove the armored SUV with casual aggression weaving through traffic, while Dante cleaned a semi-automatic pistol in his lap. Isla watched him, fascinated and terrified. "Did you love him?" she asked suddenly. The sound of the slide clicking back echoed in the car. Dante didn't look up. "He was my brother." "That's not an answer." Dante holstered the weapon. "In our world, love is a liability. It makes you slow. It makes you weak." He paused, looking out the window at the passing cranes. "But yes, I loved him enough to burn the world down to find his killer. Is that answer enough for you?" Isla fell silent. They arrived at the coordinates. It was a desolate stretch of the shipyard, overgrown with weeds and surrounded by a chain-link fence topped with razor wire. The sign on the gate read, "Property of Vanchetti Shipping. Keep out." "Vanchetti?" Dante muttered, his eyes narrowing. "That's a shell company. One of my uncle's old fronts." Rico stayed with the car. Dante cut the lock on the gate with bolt cutters, and he and Isla slipped inside. The Beatrice loomed ahead, a rusting leviathan in the dry dock. Its hull was streaked with orange oxidation, the name barely visible on the bow. It looked like a corpse of the industrial age. "Stay behind me," Dante ordered, drawing his gun. "Watch where you step. This place is a death trap." They climbed the gangplank, the metal groaning under their weight. The deck was littered with debris, old tarps, seagull droppings, rusted chains. The wind whistled through the rigging, sounding like mournful ghosts. "Where would he hide it?" Ela whispered, the desolate oceans of the ship overwhelming her. "The bridge," Dante said, "or the captain's quarters. That's where we used to hide from our father when he was on a rampage." They moved toward the superstructure. The silence of the ship was heavy, oppressive. Every creak of the metal sounded like a footstep. They reached the bridge. The windows were smashed, the controls stripped. Dust motes danced in the shafts of light, cutting through the gloom. Dante began tearing apart the panels, looking for a loose floorboard, a hidden compartment. Isla wandered toward the old navigation chart table. She ran her hand over the wood. There, carved into the side with a pocket knife, were initials LR plus IC. "Isla Corin," she breathed. "He carved our initials." Dante looked over. He saw the carving. His jaw tightened. He really did think he could have a fairy tale. "He loved me," Isla said, tears pricking her eyes. "He didn't just want to escape the business. He wanted a life." She pulled on a drawer under the table. It was stuck. She yanked harder. It gave way with a screech of rusted metal. Inside there was a small black velvet pouch. "Dante," she said. He was at her side in a second. He took the pouch and opened it. Inside wasn't diamonds or cash or drugs. It was a flash drive. And a key. An old-fashioned, heavy iron key. "Digital ledger," Dante murmured, examining the drive. "And a key to a vault, a storage unit." Suddenly a shot rang out. A bullet pinged off the metal frame of the window inches from Dante's head. "Down!" Dante roared, tackling Isla to the floor. Another shot shattered the remaining glass above them. Debris rained down on their backs. "Who is it?" Isla screamed, her face pressed against the dirty steel floor. "Pros," Dante gritted out, scanning the dock through a crack in the wall. "Silencers, high ground. We were followed. But nobody knew we were coming here. Exactly." Dante said, his face darkening with a terrible realization. Only 2 people knew the coordinates. Me, and the person I called to decode them. Saul, the private investigator, or someone inside the house. "We have to move," Dante said. "If they pin us down here, we're dead. Can you run? Do I have a choice?" "No." Dante grabbed her hand. "When I say go, you run for the engine room hatch. It leads to the lower deck. We can exit through the cargo bay. Go!" They scrambled up. Bullets sparked against the metal walls around them. Isla ran her heart, screaming in her ears. Her hand crushed in Dante's grip. They threw themselves down the ladder into the pitch-black belly of the ship. They lost the shooters in the labyrinth of the shipyard, escaping through a drainage tunnel that dumped them out 3 blocks away. Rico was gone, the SUV likely compromised or destroyed. Dante didn't hail a cab. He stole a nondescript sedan, parked outside a bodega, hot wiring it with practiced ease, while Isla kept watch, shivering in the drizzle. They drove for 2 hours, heading north out of the city, into the dense woods of upstate New York. "Where are we going?" Isla asked. She had stopped shaking, replaced by a numb shock. "My grandfather's hunting cabin," Dante said. "Off the grid. No internet, no cell service, no way to track us." The cabin was rustic but sturdy, hidden at the end of a long gravel road. Inside it smelled of cedar and wood smoke. Dante immediately went to work securing the perimeter, checking the windows, while Isla collapsed onto the dusty sofa. Night fell. Dante started a fire in the hearth. The orange glow was the only light in the room. He sat opposite her, the flash drive and the key on the table between them. "You handled yourself well today," Dante said quietly. It was the first compliment he had given her. Isla gave a weak laugh. "I grew up in foster care, Dante. You learn to run fast and hide quiet." Dante poured 2 glasses of whiskey from a bottle he found in the cupboard. He handed one to her. "Drink. It helps." She took a sip, grimacing at the burn. "Who were they?" "The men at the ship. Contractors," Dante said. "Hired guns. But the person who sent them, that's the problem. Someone knew we were going to the Beatrice. I didn't tell Rico. I didn't tell Enzo. So it was the investigator, Saul. Saul has worked for my family for 30 years. He buried bodies for my father. He wouldn't turn for money." Dante stared into the fire. "There's only one other explanation. My penthouse is bugged." Isla's eyes widened. "But you're the boss. Who would dare bug your home?" "Someone who wants my job," Dante said. "Or someone who is afraid of what's on this drive." He picked up the flash drive. "I have a laptop in the safe here. It's air-gapped, never touched the internet. Let's see what Luca died for." He retrieved the laptop and plugged in the drive. Isla moved to sit next to him, their shoulders touching. The heat radiating from him was comforting in the cold room. Files appeared on the screen, hundreds of them. Spreadsheets, audio recordings, scanned documents. Dante opened a spreadsheet titled Project Chimera. His eyes scanned the columns, and his face went pale. "My God!" "What is it?" Isla asked. "It's a ledger," Dante whispered, "of illegal arms deals, chemical weapons, uranium, stuff even the Rossi family doesn't touch. We have a code. No terrorists. No kids. This," he pointed at the screen, "this breaks every rule. Who is doing it?" Dante opened another file. It was an audio recording. He clicked play. A voice filled the room. Crackly, but unmistakable. "The shipment goes out on the 15th. If Dante finds out, he'll kill the deal. We have to keep him blind." Isla gasped. "I know that voice." Dante froze. He looked at her. "You do?" "Yes." Isla said, her hand flying to her mouth. "That's the man who came to the diner looking for Luca a week before he died. He was threatening him. He called himself Uncle Sal." Dante slammed the laptop shut. The sound was like a gunshot. "Salvatore," Dante hissed. "My uncle. My father's brother. The consigliere." "Your own uncle. He always thought I was too soft," Dante said, standing up and pacing the small room like a caged tiger. "Too focused on legitimate business. He wanted the old ways back. The blood. The chaos." He looked at the key on the table. "And this key, I know where it goes. It's for a private vault at the Union Bank in Midtown. Salvatore has a box there." Dante turned to Isla. The look in his eyes was terrifying, a mixture of grief and pure, unadulterated rage. "Luca found out," Dante said. "He found out Salvatore was running a shadow empire using family resources. He gathered the evidence. He was going to bring it to me, and Salvatore killed him for it." He walked over to the window, staring out into the dark woods. "He killed his own nephew." Isla stood up and walked to him. She hesitated, then placed a hand on his back. "What are you going to do?" Dante turned. He looked at Isla, really looked at her not as a waitress or a witness or a liability, but as the woman his brother had loved, the woman who had saved his brother's memory. "I'm going to go back to the city," Dante said softly, "and I'm going to kill him." "He'll see you coming," Isla said. If he bugged your house, he knows you know. He knows I know about the ship, Dante corrected. He doesn't know we survived. He thinks his hit squad did the job. We have the element of surprise. But you can't go alone. He has an army. I have something better, Dante said, picking up the flash drive. I have the truth. In my world, loyalty is bought with fear, but it's kept with honor. Once the captains see this, once they see Salvatore betrayed the family code, his army will turn on him. He looked at Isla. But I need you to do something for me, something dangerous. Isla swallowed hard. What? I need you to be the bait. The plan was insane. It was reckless. It was exactly the kind of thing Luca would have done. They returned to the city under the cover of darkness 2 days later. Dante contacted Enzo using a burner phone and arranged a meet. Enzo was loyal. Dante would bet his life on it. He had to. They met in the basement of an abandoned tactile factory in Queens. When Enzo saw Dante alive, the big man nearly cried. Boss, we thought the car was found torched. We thought you were gone. Not yet, Enzo, Dante said grimly. But we have a rat, a big one. Dante laid it out. The evidence, the recording. Salvatore. Enzo's face went purple with rage. Salvatore. That snake. He was crying at Luca's funeral. He held your mother's hand. He's going to die for that, Dante said calmly. But we have to do this right. The commission meets tonight. The monthly sit-down. Salvatore will be there, probably making a move to take the chair, claiming I'm missing or dead. We storm in, Enzo asked, hand on his gun. No, Dante said. We walk in. But first we need to distract him. We need to make him panic. Dante turned to Isla. She was wearing a black dress they had bought at a thrift store, her hair pulled back. She looked elegant, severe. Isla walks into the Union Bank, Dante explained. She uses the key. She asks to access Salvatore's box. The bank manager is on Salvatore's payroll. He'll call Salvatore immediately. He'll send men to kill her, Enzo said, looking at Isla. He will, Dante agreed. But Rico and a team of loyalists will be waiting in the lobby. We take his men. We take the contents of the box, and we prove to Salvatore that the ghost of Luca is coming for him. Isla's hands were shaking, but she nodded. I'll do it. For Luca. 1 hour later, Union Bank. Isla walked into the marble lobby. Her heels clicked on the floor. She felt like she was walking to the gallows. Can I help you, miss? The bank manager asked, eyeing her suspiciously. I'm here to access box 404, Isla said, her voice steady. She placed the heavy iron key on the counter. I have the authorization. The manager's eyes flicked to the key. He recognized it. He paled. 1 moment. I need to verify the signature. He hurried to the back office. Isla waited. She counted the seconds. 10. 20. Her phone buzzed in her purse. A text from Dante. He made the call. Get ready. 3 minutes later, a black van screeched to a halt outside. 4 men in masks jumped out, rushing the doors with suppressed SMGs. Get down! One screamed. Isla dropped to the floor, covering her head. The gunman rushed toward her. Grab the girl. The boss wants her alive. Just as the lead gunman reached for her, the lobby exploded with noise. But not from them. From the mezzanine level above Rico, and 6 of Dante's best enforcers opened fire. It was over in seconds. The hit squad was neutralized. Glass littered the floor. Rico vaulted over the railing, landing next to Isla. "You okay, kid?" Isla nodded, trembling. "Did it work?" "Yeah," Rico grinned, listening to his earpiece. "Enzo says Salvatore just left the commission meeting in a panic. He's heading to his safe house. He thinks you have his retirement fund." "But Dante is at the meeting," Isla said, realizing the discrepancy. "Exactly," Rico said. "Salvatore left his guard down. He left the meeting to come get you. Now Dante is alone with the other capos. He's going to show them the evidence without Salvatore there to spin it." "No," Isla said, a sudden, horrible realization dawning on her. "No, Rico. That's wrong." "What do you mean?" "The recording," Isla said, breathless. "On the drive. The voice, it said, if Dante finds out. But the person on the other end, the person listening, they didn't say anything." So Salvatore wasn't running the operation," Isla said, her mind racing back to the conversations she had with Luca. "Luca said he was afraid of the shadow, not the uncle." "The shadow?" Rico frowned. "The person who really runs things," Isla cried. "Salvatore is a figurehead. He's too stupid to run a uranium deal. He's just the muscle. If Dante is at that meeting, he's not showing the evidence to his allies. He's showing it to the real mastermind." Rico's face went slack. Who is the only person who benefits if Dante and Salvatore kill each other?" Isla asked. "Who becomes the boss then?" Rico swore. "The underboss, Arthur Vance." "We have to get to Dante," Isla screamed. "It's a trap." The meeting room at the back of the Il Destino restaurant was soundproof. Dante stood at the head of the table. Around him sat the 5 captains of the New York families. The chair at the other end was empty. Salvatore had fled just as planned. Sitting to Dante's right was Arthur Vance, smooth, bespectacled, always smiling. The man who handled the money laundering. The man Dante trusted with the books. "Gentlemen," Dante said, placing the flash drive on the table, "I have called you here because there is a cancer in this family. My uncle Salvatore has been trafficking nuclear material. He killed my brother to hide it." The captains murmured. This was a death sentence accusation. "Here is the proof," Dante said. He reached for the laptop. Arthur Vance placed a hand on Dante's wrist. "Dante," Arthur said softly, "are you sure you want to do this?" Dante looked at him. "Of course. Why?" Arthur sighed. He took off his glasses and polished them with a silk handkerchief. "Because it's such a mess to clean up." Arthur snapped his fingers. The 2 guards standing by the doormen Dante had known for years drew their weapons, but they didn't aim at the empty chair. They aimed at Dante. Dante froze. He looked around the table. The other captains didn't look surprised. They looked resigned. "You," Dante whispered. "Arthur. Salvatore is a brute," Arthur said, putting his glasses back on. "He makes noise. You are too moral, too principled. No drugs, no weapons. Do you know how much money we were losing? Dante, billions." Arthur picked up the flash drive. "Luca was a smart kid. Too smart. He figured it out. He came to me, you know. He thought I would help him stop Salvatore. I had to make the call." Dante lunged. One of the guards pistol-whipped him across the temple. Dante crashed to the floor, blood pouring from a gash on his head. "Tie him up," Arthur commanded. "We'll make it look like a family dispute. Dante killed Salvatore, then committed suicide out of guilt. A tragedy. I will step up to lead the family through the grieving process." Dante's vision swam. He was zip-tied to the heavy oak chair. "You won't get away with it," Dante slurred. "The drive is right here." Arthur smiled, pocketing it. "And the girl, the waitress, my men at the bank will handle her." Isla. Dante's heart stopped. He had sent her into a trap, not to Salvatore's men, but to Arthur's. Suddenly, the heavy oak doors of the restaurant burst open. It wasn't the police. A black SUV smashed through the front window of the restaurant, glass and timber exploding inward. The vehicle skidded to a halt in the main dining room, just outside the private room's open doors. Rico jumped out of the driver's seat, an assault rifle in hand. "Eat lead, you traitors!" He opened fire, suppressing the guards. "Isla, stay in the car!" Rico shouted. But Isla didn't stay. She saw Dante tied to the chair, blood on his face. She saw Arthur Vance pulling a gun, aiming it at Dante's head to finish him before escaping. Adrenaline, sharp and electric, flooded her system. She scrambled out of the passenger side. She grabbed the only weapon she had, a flare gun Rico had kept in the glove box. She ran into the room. "Hey!" she screamed. Arthur turned. Isla fired. The flare hit Arthur squarely in the chest. It didn't penetrate, but the magnesium charge ignited with a blinding, searing white light and intense heat. Arthur screamed, dropping his gun, batting at the burning chemical fire on his suit. "Dante!" Isla yelled, rushing to him. She grabbed a steak knife from the table and slashed his zip ties. Dante broke free. He didn't hesitate. He grabbed the gun Arthur had dropped. The guards were recovering from Rico's suppression fire. They turned to shoot. Dante was faster. Bang! Bang! 2 clean shots. Both guards dropped. Arthur was on the floor, the fire out, but his chest burned, gasping for air. He looked up at Dante. "Dante, wait. We can deal." Dante stood over him. He looked like the angel of death. "This is for Luca," Dante said. He didn't shoot Arthur. That was too quick. He kneeled down and whispered, "You wanted the shipment. You can have it." Dante dragged Arthur by his collar, hauling him toward the exit, where sirens were wailing in the distance. He threw Arthur to Rico. "Zip tie him," Dante ordered. "We leave him for the feds, along with the drive. Let him rot in a supermax for the rest of his life. Death is too easy." He turned to Isla. She was standing amidst the wreckage, shaking soot on her face, the flare gun hanging from her hand. Dante walked over to her. He cupped her face in his hands, heedless of the blood on his own fingers. "You saved me," he whispered, sounding genuinely shocked. "I wasn't going to lose another Rossi." Isla said, her voice cracking. Dante pulled her into him, burying his face in her hair. For the first time in his life, the Mafia boss didn't care who was watching. He held on to the waitress like she was the only solid thing in a crumbling world. The sirens that night didn't sound like panic. They sounded like a cleaning crew. The fallout from the shootout at Il Destino was swift and brutal, but not for Dante. With the flash drive in federal hands, anonymously delivered by a courier who vanished as quickly as he arrived, the narrative shifted instantly. The files didn't just implicate Arthur Vance and Salvatore Rossi. They painted a picture of a rogue faction operating outside the accepted rules of the underworld. For the FBI, it was the Christmas present of the century. They had the names of buyers, the shipping routes for uranium, and the bank accounts laundering the money. Arthur Vance didn't go quietly. He was dragged out of the restaurant in cuffs, screaming about immunity, about deals he could make. But the feds didn't need his deals. The drive gave them everything. Salvatore was intercepted at JFK Airport, trying to board a private jet to Belize with a suitcase full of diamonds. The image of the once feared consigliere being tackled by agents in the middle of the terminal was splashed across every front page in New York the next morning. But for Dante and Isla, the war wasn't fought in the newspapers. It was fought in the quiet, painful silence that followed the adrenaline. 3 days later, Dante sat in his study at the Obsidia Tower. A white bandage was taped over his temple, where the pistol had struck him a stark contrast to his dark hair. The room was filled with the scent of rubbing alcohol and old leather. Isla stood by the window. She hadn't left the penthouse since the restaurant. She couldn't. The paparazzi were swarming the lobby, sensing a power vacuum, though they didn't know the full story. "The commission is asking for a sit-down," Dante said, his voice raspy. He was looking at a letter sealed with wax. "They want to know if the Rossi family is still standing." "Is it?" Isla asked, turning to face him. She looked tired. The black dress from that night was gone, replaced by oversized cashmere sweats Dante had ordered for her. She looked smaller, yet somehow stronger. Dante picked up a glass of water. His hand trembled slightly, the aftershocks of a concussion. "The family as my father built it. No, that's dead. Buried with Arthur and Salvatore." He stood up, wincing slightly, and walked over to her. "I have a choice to make, Isla. I can fight to keep the territory, start a war, to prove I'm still the butcher. Or I can do what Luca wanted." "What did Luca want?" "He wanted us to be legitimate," Dante said. "He drafted plans, real estate, tech, shipping but legal shipping, no more drugs, no more weapons, no more shadows." "Can you do that?" Isla asked. "They won't let you just walk away." "I'm not walking away." Dante's eyes hardened, the steel returning to his gaze. "I'm changing the game. If they don't like it, they can try to take the crown. But I don't think they will." He paused, looking down at her. "But I can't ask you to stay for that. It's going to be ugly for a while. There will be lawyers, police threats. You're free, Isla. I set up an account for you. Enough money to go anywhere. Paris. Tokyo. You can open 100 diners." Ayla looked at him. She thought about the diner, the smell of grease, the loneliness of her apartment. Then she looked at the man standing before her, a man who had walked into fire for a brother he couldn't save, and for a woman he barely knew. "I don't want to open a diner," Isla said softly. "What do you want?" Isla reached out her fingers, grazing the bandage on his head. "I want to see if the monster can really turn into a man." Dante exhaled a sound that seemed to carry the weight of years leaving his body. He took her hand and kissed the knuckles, a gesture of reverence, not ownership. "Then stay," he whispered. "Watch me." The purge was not bloody, but it was thorough. Dante fired half his organization. It was unprecedented. Men who had been loyal to the old ways were given severance packages, generous ones, and told to retour or find work with the other families. Most took the money. Those who grumbled were reminded by Enzo, who was now the undisputed underboss, that Dante had personally taken down an entire rogue faction with a flare gun and a waitress. The respect for Dante wasn't based on fear anymore. It was based on awe. Isla found her own place in this new world. She didn't want to be a trophy wife or a hidden mistress. She took over the renovation of the Rossi Charitable Foundation, a shell organization Dante had previously used for tax write-offs. Isla turned it into a real operation, focusing on inner-city youth programs and specifically foster care reform. One rainy afternoon, she returned to Sal's 24-hour diner. The bell chimed. The smell hit her stale coffee and floor wax. Isla, her old manager Greg, dropped a stack of menus. "Holy, is that you? We saw the news. Or rumors, I guess. You look." He gestured to her tailored trench coat and the designer bag on her shoulder. I look different, Isla finished for him with a small smile. You here to ask for your shift back? Greg joked nervously. No, Greg. She placed an envelope on the counter. I'm here to buy the building. Greg's jaw dropped. What? I'm buying the building, she repeated, and I'm tripling your salary to manage it. But we're changing the menu and the coffee. God, the coffee has to change. She walked to the booth by the window, booth 4. She ran her hand over the table where she had spilled that espresso, where the locket had fallen. She sat there for a moment, closing her eyes. She whispered a goodbye to the girl who used to work here. That girl was a survivor. The woman she was now was a warrior. The transition was complete. The Rossi Group was now a registered corporation on the Nasdaq. The stocks were soaring. The FBI had officially closed the investigation into Dante citing cooperation in the takedown of the Vance trafficking ring. It was a dirty deal, but a necessary one. It was the night of the Foundation's first annual gala. The Obsidia Towers ballroom was filled with senators, judges, and celebrities. The kind of people who wouldn't have been caught dead with a Rossi 5 years ago were now shaking Dante's hand, drinking his champagne. Dante stood on the balcony, escaping the noise. He adjusted his tuxedo tie. He hated these events, but he played the part perfectly. The glass door slid open. Isla stepped out. She was breathtaking. She wore a gown of midnight blue silk that hugged her frame with a slit that showed a hint of leg. Her hair was swept up, revealing the silver locket resting against her collarbone. It was the only jewelry she wore. They're asking for you, Isla said, handing him a glass of scotch. The senator wants to talk about zoning laws. The senator is a bore, Dante grumbled, taking the drink but not letting go of her hand. I'd rather be here. You did it, you know, Isla said, looking out at the skyline. You actually did it. You went legit. We did it, Dante corrected. He turned her to face him, the city lights reflecting in his dark eyes. I would have burned out 6 months ago if you hadn't been there to pull me back. I just held the flashlight, Isla teased. Dante's expression turned serious. He reached into his pocket. He didn't pull out a ring, not yet. That was too cliché, and they had skipped too many steps already. Instead, he pulled out a small velvet box. He opened it. Inside was a new chain for the locket. Platinum unbreakable, encrusted with tiny diamonds along the links. The old chain was weak, Dante said softly. It broke when you needed it to hold. I want you to have something that won't break. Isla's eyes welled up. She turned around, lifting her hair, allowing him to unclasp the old tarnished silver chain and replace it with the new one. The weight of it felt permanent. Secure. I went to the cemetery today, Dante said, his hands lingering on her shoulders. I sat with Luca for a long time. What did you tell him? I told him, thank you, Dante whispered into her ear. I told him that he was right. The life, the business, it was a cage. He found the key, but he died before he could use it. So he gave the key to you. He turned her around. You were the key, Isla. You unlocked everything. Isla reached up, cupping his face. The fear that had defined their first meeting was a distant memory. Now there was only a profound, quiet understanding. They were two people who had seen the ugliest parts of the world and decided to build something beautiful in spite of it. I love you, she said. It was the first time she had said it aloud. Dante froze. For a man who had heard threats, pleas, and lies his entire life, those 3 words hit him harder than a bullet. He leaned down his forehead, resting against hers. I love you. he replied, his voice rough with emotion. "I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret dropping that tray." He kissed her then, not with the desperation of survival, but with the slow, burning promise of a future. Below them, New York City roared on a chaotic beast of a city. But up here, amidst the stars and the silence, the waitress and the King of New York had found their peace. Dante pulled back slightly, looking at the locket resting on her chest. The face inside was Luca's, smiling, forever young, forever reckless. "To Luca," Dante said, raising his glass to the moon. "To Luca." Isla whispered her hand over the locket. They drank the bitter scotch, tasting sweet as the music from the party swelled inside, welcoming them back to the life they had chosen together. And there it is, the end of a journey that started with a spilled coffee and ended with a reformed empire. From the gritty streets of the shipyard to the high-rise view of a new life, Isla and Dante's story proves almost that even in a world built on lies, the truth is the most powerful weapon of all. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, please give this video a huge thumbs up. It helps more people find these stories. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you're the first to hear our next drama. I want to know, do you think Dante can really stay legitimate forever, or will the old world try to pull him back in? Drop your theories in the comments below. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you in the next video.